And you can only do first aid scope of practice.
Right.
Because there's actually a first aid scope of practice.
Right. So, you know, there's a lot, so you always have to be thinking about that kind of stuff when you're out there and going about.
Lee, up until the point where EMS is called, and if it's a service you're working for, then you can work to the level of that service that you're licensed for.
As long as you're on their roster.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I said, the service that you're working for.
If you're on their roster, then yes. But if you're outside, you know, because I've had flight nurses that try to get in the back of the ambulance and do an IV, and I'm like, get out of here.
Yeah.
It's not legal for you to do that in the back of our ambulance.
Exactly right. So, unless the flight team's coming and she's a part of that roster.
Or on our roster, or part of
Right.
the mutual aid.
Right. When I worked with Birchwood, their basic service, I was at the medical level. I can only do my basic stuff in their rig until we call these guys for their stuff, and then I can work above that level. So I was on LMC's payroll.
Another issue that usually comes, at least that we always question is that when we try to care for someone is consent. You know, we always have to have consent to treat, right? I mean, and so what are those consents? How, you know, if they're unresponsive, are they consenting? Do they want to be treated? You know, a suicide person, they're unresponsive, or you're thinking, you know, they obviously probably won't consent to you helping them. So, you know, right, we've got implied consent, we've got expressed consent, involuntary consent, informed consent. So there's all these different consents, and the ones basically you can take them all and sum it down. Involuntary consent is our chapters. They get chaptered. That's involuntary consent. So they're going to be. We're going to treat them per the court order, or as we see what a normal quote unquote would be, or a normal person would expect. Express consent is obviously that verbal yes. You know, when I start an IV on you, please go ahead, or you know, and explaining to them the cares that you're going to provide. Implied consent is those times where it's the emergency doctrine, if you will, as they like to quote it as. They're unresponsive. Any reasonable person would want certain things done, and that's the implied consent. So,
can I give a scenario and we can discuss that really
Sure.
quick? I don't want to interrupt your whole spiel here, but it's an interesting scenario. So you're looking at all of those different consents, and you're called by a neighbor to a farm, and a child had fallen off a horse, and he's laying with back pain on the field, and you arrive out there. The neighbor is with you because he saw it happen, and the father comes, whose culture is a little different than ours. It's an Amish culture. They're opting to not have you care for the child. They will take care and bring him to the ER and do it their own way. You're worried about spinal injuries. However, the father assures you that they can take care of it. They're trained to do what they choose to do. They'll get him to the ER their way. What are you going to do? What's your thoughts? It's a 13-year-old boy. What are you going to do?
Well, first of all, it's their religion, their lifestyle. We need to respect that.
Absolutely. There's absolutely respect in every culture. Absolutely. Yep. But you are truly worried that this child doesn't really feel anything below his hips, because you've managed to assess him before the father got out there, because he was out in the fields. They had notified him, and then the neighbor called you at the same time. You just arrived sooner.
I would get law enforcement involved and worried about I don't want to say child abuse, because that's not what it is, but I would just get law enforcement involved and see what their point of view would be, because there's the possibility
of a life and limb threat.
Yes, so I would get law enforcement involved, you know, and see if there's an emergent type thing that they can do.
Well, let's put it in the context of something. It doesn't matter if something's life-threatening or not. If I've got somebody sitting in front of me who I think they're going to die in the next 15 minutes, if they're of sound mind and they say, don't touch me, I still can't touch them.
and he's a
Right.
So-
13-year-old and he's not responding to you,
But his
he doesn't.
father.
But the thing is that the father is the legal guardian.
And he's
Yeah.
responsible.
He's the one that's he's the one that can say it, so we gotta take it out of the context of whether this is life-threatening or not, or this is long-term injury. It's gotta be from a legal sense, and the way it's stacked up legally, father is the legal guardian, he's telling you, don't touch my kid. We're kinda stuck.
You do everything in your power to convince him that.
Absolutely.
Or if you could assist them with.
I was just gonna,
With
if you're
helping.
really smart, you say, would you like to use one of my boards? It's not a mechanical device or anything, we can take him down to it, and allow them to take him to the hospital, assist
Can we
him in what
assist
he's
you?
gonna do,
Yes, that's
what
true.
can I do to help you do it your way?
And I
would be
like
the
that.
smart thing to do.
Working with him, I did want to point out,
Negotiate.
Yeah.
negotiate. I did want the point was exactly what Lee said, even though and I'm with Crystal 100% and Erica trying to make it an informed decision by all means.